0%. No European mothers, not one. Not anywhere on the mother side of the family of the Gullah Geechee people. Mainstream African American DNA and Gullah Geechee DNA come from the same country, the same history. Compare their DNA side by side, and you get two completely different pictures. Here's what happened. A string of islands off the coast of South Carolina managed to keep a West African village alive in the blood for 300 years. While everything around it changed, scientists put two groups side by side. Then they ran the numbers. If you like stories like this, hit subscribe. We dig into a new mystery every week. On one side, you have the Gullah Geechee. These are the people who came from enslaved Africans. They lived and worked on the Sea Islands, a chain of land along the coasts of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Marsh sat on one side, ocean on the other. For a long stretch of history, there was no easy way off. Water does something roads don't do. It seals a place. On the other side, you have the DNA of the rest of Black America. This is the story of families who moved during the Great Migration. They left the rural South and moved into Chicago, Detroit, New York, and Philadelphia. Generations of marriage happened across those cities. Generations of mixing and blending kept adding new ancestry with every decade. In 2021, a team of DNA scientists decided to test the difference between these two groups. The study ran in the American Journal of Physical Anthropology. It compared 883 Gullah people against more than 1,300 people from the Jackson Hart study. That's a well-known research group based in Mississippi. That study tracks the health and DNA of African Americans across multiple generations. It gives us a clear picture of what mainstream Black American DNA looks like today. Both groups came from the same continent. Both started at the same point on a slave ship 300 years ago. Here's what you'd guess going in. First guess, the two groups should look almost the same in their DNA. Same Middle Passage, same country, same broad history of pain and survival. Second guess, okay, maybe not identical, but close. A few points of difference here or there. Nothing dramatic, neither guess held up. The Gullah Geechee came back with an average of 90.7% West and Central African ancestry. The rest of Black America came back at 82.2%. That's an 8.5-point gap. In the science of studying groups through their DNA, that's two different histories written into two different sets of DNA. Ancestry percentage was only the first thing they measured. The scientists also looked at mitochondrial DNA. This is the code passed down only from mother to child, generation after generation. It never gets touched by the father's side. In the Gullah Geechee, that signature came back 100% African, 0 non-African mothers in their family tree, not a trace. 0 across every generation scientists could trace for 300 years. The rest of Black America doesn't look like that. They carry clear signs of non-African mothers in their family tree. That's evidence of mixing that happened somewhere down the line, generations back. The Gullah line stayed sealed. No European mother, no Native American mother, nobody but African women, unbroken. But that's not even the strangest part of what the DNA showed. When they measured total European DNA across the whole genetic makeup, the Gullah Geechee came back at 8%. Mainstream African Americans came back at 16.3%. That's more than double. So the isolation story checks out so far. Fewer outside genes got in on the islands than on the mainland. They looked at the X chromosome next. Women carry 2 copies of the X chromosome, 1 from each parent. Men carry only 1 from their mother. So the X passes through women twice as often as men. If European DNA had come in evenly from both sexes, the X should show a similar percentage as the rest of the DNA, maybe even higher. but the Gullah X chromosome showed only 4.3% European DNA. That's less than half of the 8% found everywhere else. That's backwards, and in DNA science, when a number runs backwards like that, it's a signal. Researchers ran the math to figure out what kind of imbalance could cause a gap that size. The answer pointed to something specific. Almost all of the European DNA in the Gullah group came from men. The estimate for male contribution came out to 119.38%. A number just over 100% doesn't mean anything strange or magical. It just means the model is stretching to explain something almost total. European women added close to nothing to this group's DNA. European men accounted for almost all of it. Put those two facts together and you get a clear picture. You can see who had access to whom on those plantations and who didn't. The numbers don't need extra explanation. European men fathered children with enslaved African women. European women, as a rule, did not have children with enslaved African men. That's what the math is built to find. And it's exactly what it found. If you've ever taken a DNA test from one of the big testing companies and seen a percentage for African ancestry on your results page, that number was set in part using Gullah Geechee DNA. Their DNA, kept whole by 3 centuries of isolation, became one of the benchmarks scientists use to define what West African ancestry looks like in the first place. Somewhere behind your ancestry report sits a population from a handful of islands off the coast of South Carolina. The DNA can't answer that question by itself. To find out, scientists traced the ancestry back to its source and found 5 distinct African regions that fed into the Gullah bloodline. Start with the biggest one, West Central Africa. Angola, Congo, Gabon. People who spoke Bantu languages, and they made up close to 40% of everyone brought through the port of Charleston. This is the single biggest source of the DNA in the Gullah people. Whole language families, whole farming traditions, carried across the ocean and planted straight into the marsh. Then there's the Bight of Benin and the Bight of Biafra. That's the region covering modern Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Nigeria. Akan, Yoruba, Igbo, entire kingdoms with their own languages, governments, and histories, all of them reduced by the slave trade to shipping lists, and all of them showing up now in the DNA of the people who came after. The Windward Coast comes next. That covers modern Ivory Coast and Liberia. It shows up in smaller amounts, less than the other streams, but still present. A DNA trail that's easy to miss if you're not looking for it. Senegambia sits further north, the homeland of the Fula and Wolof peoples. They were cattle herders and traders, not rice farmers. In their DNA, they show up as a clear mark in the Gullah people, separate from the coastal rice-growing groups. This isn't guesswork. Scientists confirmed it using old DNA pulled from remains at the Anson Street African Burial Ground in Charleston. Those 18th century skeletons carried DNA markers that trace straight back to Fula cattle herders. And then there's the 5th stream, Sierra Leone, the Rice Coast. This is the stream people usually point to first when they talk about Gullah roots. There's a reason for it. The Gullah language shares words, rhythm, even sentence structure with Creole, the language of Sierra Leone. The rice farming techniques on the Sea Islands, the tidal planting, the coiled baskets used to separate rice from the husk, all of it traces back to the same growing methods used in that part of West Africa for centuries. But the clearest proof of this connection is in a song. In 1933, a scientist recording Gullah communities in Georgia captured a woman named Amelia Dawley, singing a short piece in a language nobody around her understood. She'd learned it from her mother. Her mother had learned it from hers. Nobody knew what the words meant. They just knew you sang it a certain way, and you didn't forget it. Decades later, scientists played that recording for people in Sierra Leone. A woman there recognized it instantly. It was Menda, the language spoken there, a funeral song, a song for sending the dead on their way, sung by women pounding rice as part of the ceremony. Scientists tracked the song to a village called Senahun, Angola. A woman there had been taught the very same song by her own grandmother. In 1997, Amelia Dawley's daughter, Mary Moran, traveled to that village. She sang the song together with the woman who'd carried it on the other side of the ocean. Two branches of the same family tree, split apart for 2 centuries, singing the same words neither side had ever fully understood. 5 streams, 5 separate African worlds, each with its own language, its own trade, its own kings and farmers and mothers, all compressed onto a handful of islands off one American coastline. Other enslaved people came from these same regions and landed at other American ports. Their families blended into the wider population within a few generations. So why didn't that happen here? Why did 5 distinct African family lines stay separate enough, isolated enough for scientists to still trace them individually 300 years later? 3 things kept those bloodlines from mixing into the wider population. Most southern plantations ran on what's called the gang system. Everybody worked from sunup to sundown, under constant watch, no time that belonged to you. The Sea Islands ran differently. Enslaved workers got a task, a set amount of ground to plant or rice to process. Once you finished it, the rest of the day was yours. That single difference built something rare. Hours where enslaved communities cooked, worshipped, married, and raised children with almost no white presence at all. And for months at a time, there was no white presence, period. These islands sat thick with mosquitoes, and mosquitoes meant malaria. The plantation owners knew it, even if they didn't understand why. So every summer they packed up and left for the mainland. They handed daily operations to enslaved drivers who ran the fields on their own. Half the year, these communities ran their own lives. No bridges connected these islands to the mainland until the 1950s. Special Field Orders No. 15, an order issued near the end of the Civil War, let formerly enslaved families claim land on these islands as their own. So instead of scattering into cities or sharecropping under a new boss, Gullah families stayed. They owned the ground under their feet. They kept building the same tight communities they'd always had. That held mostly undisturbed until bridges went up. Then people building hotels and vacation homes started buying up the coastline decades later. Now scientists use that same isolation to study diseases nobody used to understand. Take a gene called APOL1. In West Africa, it does something useful. It protects against sleeping sickness, a parasite spread by tsetse flies. But carry 2 copies of the risk version, and everything changes. Outside that environment, your risk goes up 7 to 30 times for a serious kidney problem called chronic kidney disease. Because Gullah ancestry is always so African, researchers can study this gene without mixed ancestry, making the picture blurry. That's part of how scientists found its role in kidney failure across all Black Americans. Or take the Duffy null version of a gene. It's carried by more than 66% of Black Americans. It lowers white blood cell count, and it's completely harmless. But for decades, doctors using standard medical charts flagged healthy people as diseased. They denied treatment or delayed it based on a number that was never dangerous to begin with. Under a research project called Project Sugar, scientists found a gene. It sits on a part of the DNA called chromosome 14. The gene is tied to type 2 diabetes, and it shows up almost only in the Gullah. It's linked to a later age of diagnosis. That discovery only surfaced because this population never blended away. Is something narrower and rarer, one population sealed by water and time that stayed almost entirely African, while the rest of the country kept mixing and moving for 3 centuries straight. The Gullah story took a different path, a different photograph, taken on a different island, developed on its own, while everyone else's picture kept changing shape. Other isolated groups in this country changed over time too. Small closed communities almost always do. Cut a population off long enough, and a few generations of marrying within itself will start to show. The Gullah didn't change. They stayed West African, almost unchanged for 300 years, because the water sealed them in, because the task system handed them hours the rest of the enslaved South never got, and because freedom, when it finally came, let them keep the ground instead of scattering across it. A people can be carried 4,000 miles across an ocean and still carry their village in their blood. If you want more stories like this one, hit subscribe. Next time, we head into the mountains of Appalachia to a group called the Melungeons, whose DNA stumped scientists for decades.